President-elect Donald Trump announcing billionaire Elon Musk and entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy will lead a new Department of Government Efficiency. And joining us now to discuss all this is Gautam, Mukunda, lecturer of management practice at the Yale School of Management. Gautam, it's always good to see you. So Department of Government Efficiency, Gautam, how successful do you think this new department will be? How should we think about and define success?
So thinking again about defining it, the standard that Elon Musk has set for us is that he believes he can cut $2 trillion from the federal budget annually. Let's just put this in perspective. Non-defense discretionary spending, so everything that's not Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, including defense included discretionary spending. So everything the U.S. government does that is in some sense optional is $1.7 trillion a year. So to get his target, he's going to have to zero out defense, the Department of Energy, Department of Education, and then to cut $300 billion out of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound to me like he's going to hit his target.
Well, listen, Gautam, we know that Musk, at least when he's talking about Tesla, we should take him seriously, but not literally when it comes to his targets. That's gone for his companies, too. You know, he's delayed a lot of stuff, whatever. So, okay, so let's say in theory, he takes more of the Twitter approach to government, right? Where he goes in and sort of gets his hands dirty, so to speak, and says, oh, you know, $400 toilet paper, no, thank you. You know, this plane is way over budget. Why are we doing this? You know, could we envision that kind of a scenario?
I mean, I hope so, in the sense that, look, government procurement desperately needs to be reformed. I used to say that my major contribution to the Navy back when I was advising was making sarcastic comments about the debacle that was the F-35 program. So great, let's try and fix those things. The problem is that it doesn't actually add up to that much. The U.S. government at its base is a highly efficient check writing operation that also happens to own a very large army. That's really the way you should think about the budget. So the big numbers are not in the places where you can cut. If he does, then takes the Twitter approach, as you put it, which is sort of what I imagine he's thinking. There's just a few problems. So one is the Department of Government Efficiency has no staff, no statutory authority. So think about the cabinet secretaries who Trump is going to appoint when these people come in and tell them, hey, you're doing your job so badly, we're going to cut your budget by a third. My guess is they won't respond to it that well, and they don't actually have to answer to these two. The second problem is that the federal government is not, a social media company. So there are a lot of things that the government does where failure is not, you get it 99% of the time. It's where you get it right 100% of the time. Think about it like managing nuclear waste. The Department of Energy manages all the spent fuel from American nuclear power plants or from American nuclear weapons manufacturing. The number of acceptable nuclear waste accidents is 0. That takes an enormous amount of technical skill and a lot of people who have a lot of institutional expertise. And if you just get rid of half of them, you can get lucky for a long stretch of time, but eventually you're going to have some problems there that are going to blow back on you in a little bit more spectacular way than having bots on Twitter. You just have a sort of an endless number of examples of that. And of course, all of these are also jobs that members of Congress are going to start getting worried about, because some of them are going to feel either directly in their constituency or in the services of the constituency. So, I mean, I think trying to make the government more efficient is great. This strikes me as a pretty odd way to do it.
At the same time, Gautam, I just wonder, the politics of all this. This is a Republican sweep. I mean, called by CNN and NBC News today. That they say Republicans held on to the House. I'm just wondering, do you think if there was going to be cuts made, is this sort of the kind of almost rare, unique window Republicans have where you could do it? You could see these kind of spending cuts.
So this isn't the first Republican sweep, right? We also had this in the first Trump administration, and we didn't see these kinds of cuts. Look, the people around President Trump, the President-elect Trump, and seem to be much more willing to do these sorts of things. I suspect that they very much want to try these kinds of cuts, and it wouldn't shock me if they get some of them through. What I'm predicting is, one, that it won't be 50 or 70% cuts, the sort of cuts they're talking about, just because of what will happen, because of the pushback that will be within the government. But also, if they do get these cuts, there are going to be a lot of Republican congressmen who have their eyes on the 2026 elections who are not locked in, and they're going to get very worried very fast.
People are affected by some of those cuts, after all, and some of those people are constituents. Gautam, I want to switch gears and ask you as well about an op-ed that you wrote for the New York Times, where you talked about, for example, some of the picks that we've learned about on the part of President-elect Trump, Senator Marco Rubio, for example, for Secretary of State, Michael Waltz, National Security Advisor, and sort of try to extrapolate what that could mean for foreign policy. Now, for our purposes, I want to talk about China specifically because that's where investors are most focused, right? What do you think these picks tell us about what could eventually happen with tariffs and trade relations?
So, so far, the consistent pattern across all the picks seems to be people who really, really want to go in hard against China and really ramp up sort of everything from tariffs to foreign policy tensions to sort of national security competition. That's a consistent pattern. But I also note there was a pattern in the first Trump administration, right, where he used his sort of appointees as the bad cop and himself as the good cop. So he could say, oh, well, I'm going to pull us back from the brink over and over again. I don't know if he's going to keep trying to do that, but he did do that before. Where I would be most sort of thinking about the focus is trade conflict, things like that. That's one thing. Countries have trade conflicts all the time. And while that would be a hit for the U.S. economy and for the Chinese economy, we're both big economies. We'd survive it. A real national security conflict with China involving force, that's a whole different set of risks. Any conflict between U.S. and China would, this is not hyperbole, be the worst thing to happen since the Second World War. And that's if the conflict is just a small one, not the worst case scenario. So everybody involved, I hope, will get very, very careful very, very quickly if they start pushing that to the brink.
Gautam, always great to see you and to have you on the show. Appreciate your insight.
Thank you.